how the Gauteng Education Department will be dealing with this issue. It is a thorny issue. It keeps on rearing its ugly head each year, the beginning of the academic year. We saw the fights beginning of this academic year, and we saw it perhaps even the previous years, and it keeps on occurring. And many of the parents are saying that the Gauteng online application process is failing them and ultimately compromising their children. We've heard the disappointments that they have echoed, saying that this is year in, year out, and they feel that there is not enough political will to adequately resolve these challenges. And we've heard, of course, how the leadership in Gauteng, the MEC, the Premier, even the Education Minister, nationally so, tackling this issue, talking about some of the challenges that are at the center of these frustrations that are experienced by the parents. Some, of course, have to do with their own doing. Many of the parents who apply late, we've heard the Gauteng Education MEC, Mr. Matome Chiloane here, talking about how some of the parents apply late. They have application, forms that are not filled in correctly. And then there's also the issue of insisting on particular schools, even if those schools do not have enough capacity. But the man is here to speak to us directly. And maybe just, MEC, as we are about to approach this grueling process, and we'll say it is a grueling process, taking the challenges that comes with this particular system into consideration. What's your message to the parents, those who are waiting to apply, who are gearing up? What should they do? What should they not do? What are you assuring them in terms of the leadership role that is needed to make sure that they are catered for? This issue goes to the heart of service delivery, by the way.
No, thank you again. Good morning to you and your viewers. What I can say to parents is that they must be rest assured that their children will be placed. We are working around the clock. We won't wait for January to really try to find space. We are working, we already know. We are doing it multi-streamed to ensure that we increase the capacity of schools, to ensure that learners are placed across. But what we can say to parents as well is that there's been a significant improvement from the system itself, and the system is at best the best that we have currently. I assure them that in the past, the parents would sleep outside schools for days, for a week or two, whatever, so that they are able to get an opportunity to register their children at their preferred schools. This time, you can do it in our working centers, you can do it at a school, or you can do it from the comfort of your home or work. So we have applied technology to make it much easier for parents to ensure that they get their children placed into schools that they prefer. So the system has really assisted us a lot. We could have been dealing with the chaos. Imagine 350,000 parents, because these are 350,000 learners, parents across in schools scrambling for space. That would be very, very, very difficult. And also the transparency of the system, who got placed where. We are able to pull out those data. So the system is the best thing that we could have done as a system, because our system is very big. We've got the biggest system in the country. That will include even private schools, with more than 3.5 million learners across the province in schools every day. So with such a big system, you need some form of technological advancement to ensure that it runs seamlessly. But in terms of spaces and educational support for schools, we are prepared, ensuring that in areas that we will experience high pressure, we've already put measures in place so that we mitigate now, so that by that time we get to that point. For instance, as we said, some parents in certain areas, they preferred certain schools. We have given capacity to certain schools to increase the classroom space, and already some schools are already ready with that spaces, so we know that we'll be able to place. But we want to work with parents that The constitutional obligation for us as a department is to place learners in schools. And we are going to do that, but work with us.
All right, I just need to come in there, MEC. You're talking about the improvements. We've heard this previously. Every year we are promised that there are improvements, but each year we find the receivers of those improvements not being happy. Those are the parents and their children. Can we go back a little bit? What are the challenges? What has made it so difficult? And if you had to put it in proper context, what are these improvements that you're talking about?
No, from the system side is the capacity to handle all the applications and also the transparency thereof, so that we're able to, parents can also be able to, and the communication, because in the anxiety, I spoke about the anxiety, that the anxiety of a parent applying and waiting for the SMS for months can be difficult. So we're improving the communication so that parents are able to, from time to time, get update in terms of how far is the application. Secondly, we know with this system, we're able to plan. We know where we will have pressure. Currently, we know. So we're placing measures to mitigate the impact thereof. The role of the parents is to ensure that work with us. If we're giving your child offers or spaces, trust us that where we place your child, they will get the same quality with the school that they preferred.
Which are the pressure areas? If you can just remind us, you touched on it. Just remind us, which areas have you already identified where you know there's always problems and there's always capacity challenges?
I'll not do it in district, I'll just in areas. The Kempton Park, Edenvale area, it's a high pressure area, Florida, Rodiport, Centurion, Montana. So those are the areas where and that's largely because of the development that has been taking place in those areas. So the development has not necessarily been complemented by infrastructure of schools there. So those are some of the areas. But we know that we know where to expect these pressures, and then we want to work with parents that where we will be placing your learners in and around, we are going to place them in a reasonable area where they'll also be comfortable. And the schools, they must trust that the schools that will be putting them, they will get what they expected from those that they preferred. But the 5 schools, we will do our best that we don't exit that preferred 5 schools.
The other concern from parents, from other stakeholders within the education sector, that there is not enough schools being built in particular Gauteng, that we know is overpopulated, and that is perhaps at the center of many of the challenges that are faced by the education system in the province, whether it is the issue of finding space or the issue of having bloated classrooms that make learning very difficult. It challenges discipline as well. We've heard the teachers complaining how much pressure they are under. How are you responding to that? What, immediate and perhaps long-term tangible plan is in place to address the issue of not having enough schools in this province?
We've embarked on a multi-pronged approach. We currently, with the support of Treasury, we were able to get funding to build 18 new schools. We're currently finalizing that process of appointing service providers to assist us, and they've got timelines with the project manager. So we are going to be building 18 new schools to eradicate asbestos, to eradicate mobiles, and new schools within that particular number. And we have schools that are almost at completion. We've got about 5 or 6 to add to that. We've got also, we're also collaborating with, there's 56 schools that are in the pipeline to be built within our infrastructure department, as well as 57 rather, so that I get the numbers right. Also, we are partnering with the private sector to work with us so that we can collaborate and so that they can also assist us in building schools.
Are these long-term plans, or can some of these plans give immediate results? Because if we talk about the schools that will be built, and they will only be built in the next 5 years or 10 years, it compromises those who need help immediately.
No. We're talking about things that are quick. I've got a particular target that in the beginning of the academic year, I need to be opening schools daily for about a period of a week or two. We need to ensure that. So there are schools that are almost there. And you know that if you work with correct, you have a correct collaborative partnership, you can literally work around the clock, because I know in some areas you can work 24 hours because the pressure is real, it's now. So once we start hitting the ground, we want the first set of schools by the end of the year. So we'll be getting a lot of schools.
Those who continue to harbor the perception, the perhaps accusation that some of their children are being denied access in some schools, some areas, based on a language barrier. I'm sure you're very familiar with those accusations. They are very tense. They become political. You as a political head in the province, you stand accused of not protecting the previously marginalized groups in the country. How do we navigate around these nuances? They're very complex, but what are the rules, the lawful criterias in terms of admission?
No, there's no school that should deny any learner based on language. That is clear, all right? So these schools that are identified, we need to get a significant number. So if you don't have enough numbers, for example, a school, let's say, you get 12 or 13 applications for English, as an instance, it's difficult to really set up a classroom because it's the cost. Rather take those learners and put them in other schools. But with adequate numbers that we see now happening, we are able to provide the support. That's why I said there are schools that were like that. I give you an example of a school in Kempton Park, Yegeland. It used to be an Afrikaans only. We brought in English. We gave them capacity. Now they've got their first cohort of matriculants. So we are transforming those schools. But we need to work with parents. We need to work with those schools they are aware. But there's no school. I can say it here clearly that parents can be assured there's no school that will be denying any learner based on language. Whether it's Afrikaans, whether it's English, whether it's Pedi, whether it's Zulu, no. A parent, that's why within the application we said, choose your preferred home language, and then we'll take it from there. It doesn't mean that if you've chosen this language, you will be engaged as a parent, on the availability of this school with this language or that school with that language, yes.
All right, thank you so much. The Gauteng Education, MEC, they're just giving us reassurance that they're doing the best that they can to ensure that all the glitches and perhaps all the challenges within the online education or rather online application system, those challenges are addressed adequately to ensure that the parents, learners get the services that they need. Also earlier he touched on the issue of safety in schools. Some of these schools that are plagued by violent crimes, issues of gangsterism, and he also said that that is receiving proper attention, collaboration with law enforcement, and there's a lot of other programs in the pipeline to make sure that proper safety measures are implemented in the various schools. So it's a lot of issues, but at the center right now, of course, the focus remains the controversial online application process. Will we see the challenges that we have seen in the previous years, or are we going to see the improvements? Will the MEC that is standing here be able to obviously honor the promises that he is making with his team to ensure that we have a smooth system and that all the parents will be able to enter the new academic year next year, perhaps with minimal challenges, but most importantly, knowing that their children have schools to go to?